Darkcast Network. Welcome to the dark side of podcasting.
Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way, motherfucker. The devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Fall to your knees. Devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Motherfucker, he's on his way.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to Mountain Murders.
I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
I had to give Dylan a stern pep talk before we started.
Oh, my gosh. She took me out. What do they say? You took me to church, right?
Somebody needs to.
Yeah.
I got to exorcise these damn demons out of you.
Get out of here, you son of a bitch.
This demon of foolishness.
You let him be normal.
I wish.
Baby.
Don't baby me.
Yeah.
It's time to record.
Yeah.
This is podcast time, Dylan.
Well, just to give people a taste of what was happening, I told her I felt like Stevie Wonder, and I was doing the Stevie Wonder, and I was knocking stuff over, and she was like, "What is wrong with you?"
I don't understand. You make my head hurt. You frustrate me.
Yeah, but I think that's the special sauce.
No.
No?
You are not good for my well-being. Dylan, we have a case to get into today, and before we do that, I did want to give a little bit of a trigger warning.
Uh-oh.
We are going to be dealing with some subjects that I know upset some people. We'll be talking about foster care, child abuse, the death of a child. I know. Yeah, I know. But it's important to talk about this case.
It is.
Are you ready, Dylan?
I think so.
Let's get into today's case. I thought we could start by discussing a bit about foster care. For those who are not familiar, foster care is defined as a, quote, child welfare service that provides substitute family care for a planned period for a child when his or her own family cannot care for him or her, whether temporarily or for an extended period of time. It involves full-time substitute care for children who have been removed from their parents or guardians for whom the state has taken legal custody. Now, the goal of foster care is often not to create like a new family unit or encourage permanent emotional ties between the child and the foster parent. Instead, foster care is designed to provide a stable, nurturing, non-institutional environment for a child while the biological parent or caretaker attempts to remedy the problems which precipitated the child's removal.
AKA get their shit together.
Sure, Dylan, yes. Very, very eloquent. 60% of youths in foster care enter the system as a result of abuse, neglect, or some other trauma. Despite laws and oversight within the system, unknown numbers of more than 500,000 children in foster care will die in an alleged wrongful death while in such care.
Wow. Now, say that again. I'm sorry. I want to make sure I understood.
Despite laws and oversight within the system, unknown numbers of more than 500,000 children in foster care will die from alleged wrongful deaths. So of these 500,000 children that are in foster care, there will be children who die a wrongful death, but they don't even have like a proper statistic of how many kids that would be.
Damn. What the hell?
Because it varies, and because there are often more than other. I mean, it's kind of hard, I guess, to give like a quantitative figure there.
No. So, the system period is always trying to get the children back with their parents, right? To get the parents to get better, get healthier, remedy, like you said, whatever the issue is, be it financial, a substance abuse issue, counseling, anger management, whatever it is.
Parenting
classes. The system's always trying to get the kids back in the home with the parents.
Yeah, like reunification's always the main goal.
At every level, right? So, and you know, we always hear stories, bad stories about foster care and foster homes, but I'm sure there's many, many good, loving homes that, you know, do a really good job. And, you know, some people have, gosh, you know, 30, 40, 50 kids in their lifetime come through their home, you know, in and out over the years. And I think that's a very important thing, a service that they provide. You know what I mean? The good foster homes.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it takes a very special kind of person to open their home to children in need.
Yeah. Yeah. And when it's working right on paper, it sounds like a really good idea because, like you said, it's non-institutional. It's a lot more, quote unquote, normal, you know, for the children. So, I mean, in theory, it sounds like a good program or the way you'd want to go.
When these deaths occur, the stoic, matter-of-fact headlines often exclude the brutal and excruciating details. Each death of a child in foster care forces us to look at what may have gone wrong and how the system can be improved. So before we start today's case, I think it's important to examine the issues, you know, why the foster care system fails children and how these failures contribute to these tragic outcomes. Many child welfare agencies are overwhelmed by caseloads that significantly exceed their capacity. Social workers are responsible for monitoring hundreds of children, making it challenging to provide thorough assessments or ensure that placements are safe. Social workers often handle 30 to 50 cases at once, well above the recommended 12 to 15.
I don't think no matter what the industry or job is, I don't think anyone can handle that kind of volume and do an efficient job, right? Let alone when it's children and their well-being, that's your job.
Insufficient funding results in inadequate training, poor oversight, and minimal support for foster families. Reports of abuse or neglect in foster homes can take months to address due to bureaucracy and lack of staff. Due to the urgent need for placements, agencies may hasten the approval process for foster parents, permitting individuals with questionable backgrounds or, you know, maybe not up to snuff caregiving skills to care for children. Some states and private agencies fail to conduct thorough background investigations. Some foster parents are driven more by government stipends than by the well-being of children. And in certain cases, foster parents with previous allegations of abuse or neglect will continue to receive payments.
Okay.
As a result, children are placed in environments where they may be physically, emotionally, or sexually abused. Foster care agencies and caseworkers frequently lack the means to consistently monitor children and ensure these, safety regulations are in place. Caseworkers may conduct cursory visits or forego them entirely because of their caseloads. Even when reports of abuse emerge, bureaucratic delays hinder immediate removal. Some agencies neglect to escalate severe abuse cases to the police, which results in extended harm. Children in foster care often experience multiple placements, disrupting their sense of stability and increasing their vulnerability. Moving from home to home prevents the formation of trusting relationships. And with each placement, children face new potential risks, including exposure to unsafe or abusive homes.
Yeah, these poor kids. So they're being taken from, a bad situation and then have a chance of ending up in another unsafe home. I mean, that's just...
Or a worse situation.
Or a worse situation. That's just so scary and sad.
Yes. Foster youth who experience instability are more likely to run away, increasing their exposure to trafficking, exploitation, and violence. Emotional trauma, higher suicide rates, and increased vulnerability to exploitation can be a result of this. I mean, this is not positive. I mean, as much as you think the system is acting in a positive way, removing these kids from bad situations, I mean, the results and the risks of some of these foster situations are dire.
I mean, on a personal level, I've seen the system, not like the worst story you've ever heard or anything, but I've seen the system fail right in front of me, and I've seen it fail around me for other people, And it really blows your mind. But a lot of times it's these things you're outlining: bureaucracy, regulations, overwhelmed caseloads. All these things contribute to that.
Many foster children endure significant emotional and psychological trauma from past abuse, neglect, and separation from their families. However, the system fails to offer sufficient mental health care. Numerous children lack access to trauma-informed counseling or psychiatric support. Instead of therapy, many foster children are placed on psychotropic medications without proper oversight. Signs of self-harm or suicidal ideation are often dismissed or unnoticed by overworked caseworkers. Even when in foster care, if children report abuse, their claims are dismissed a lot of times or not taken seriously. Foster children who speak about the abuse may be labeled as troublemakers and moved to another placement rather than being protected. Many foster children do not have like a dedicated advocate or an attorney fighting for their rights. Some agencies prioritize protecting their reputation over investigating foster home abuse allegations, which is disgusting.
It is disgusting.
So in today's case, we will be, seeing examples of these failings within the system. That's why I gave a trigger warning, because this is a very horrific case.
I'm getting pre-pissed right now.
You're gonna be. The tragic death of 15-month-old Aubrey Kenna Marie Littlejohn in Swain County, North Carolina in January of 2011 exposed significant failures within the child welfare system and led to criminal charges against both her caregiver and local social workers. Aubrey was born in October of 2009 in Bryson City, which is considered a bit of a hard scrabble community in the Smoky Mountains. Aubrey was a member of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, like her mother, Jasmine Littlejohn. Jasmine had been in and out of trouble for most of her life. She gave birth to Aubrey just months after being charged with 3 others on marijuana trafficking charges. Jasmine went to jail for probation violation in April of 2010. Her older daughter, Zoe, went to stay with Ruth McCoy. That would be Jasmine's aunt, so I believe that is the children's great aunt.
Okay.
Aubrey was placed in the care of another great aunt, Lady Bird Powell. She is also an enrolled member of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. Jasmine didn't want to burden her Aunt Ruth with 2 children. She said, quote, "I thought it would be good for my Aunt Birdie." 38-year-old Lady Bird Powell lived in a trailer in Cherokee. However, at the time of Littlejohn's death, the tribe didn't have its own agency to manage child abuse and neglect cases. Instead, the child welfare divisions of Jackson and Swain counties handled cases on tribal land.
That's funny because they, have a lot of revenue coming into the tribe there.
Well, when you get into like Indian affairs, it gets kind of murky because they're considered, the land is sovereign, and they do have their own, court system and their own kind of way of handling, I guess, punishment, crime, that kind of stuff internally. But for whatever reason, at this point, they didn't have their own, child welfare agency.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, why, if it was something to do with, state regulations or... I'm not really sure. And like I said, sometimes it's kind of murky because it's federal land. And then you have, but the reservation also falls onto 2 separate counties. You have the Qualla boundary, but then you have some of it surrounding Swain and Jackson County. So it gets a little murky. And especially for someone who's not living on the res and doesn't understand all the inner workings of it, I can't tell you why they didn't have.
It does sound complicated.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't have their own agency at this point. So Powell lived on the Swain County side of the reservation, so the case fell to that county's Department of Social Services. While serving time, Jasmine Littlejohn never heard from Powell. Family members told her that Aubrey was often spotted with bruises. So can you imagine, as a parent, you've done this thing, and you've accepted responsibility for your actions. You're serving your time. You're trying to get through it. You have children, including this, essentially a baby that you hand over to a relative, and you're trusting this person to care for your child. And that person's not even in contact with you. They're not letting you know, like, any updates on your child. I mean, that has to be a horrible feeling. You're sitting in a jail cell, probably plagued with anxiety and worry.
No, that sounds terrible. I mean, being away from having done something, ending up in jail, that doesn't make you, a terrible person. Certainly depends on the crime, but this isn't the end of the world. You're trying to get a little bit of marijuanas together there. But, I mean, under the best circumstances, that's going to be hard, right? Even if you know your children are in a loving, environment, everything's being provided for them. So even under the best circumstances, it's going to be tough, let alone if you're not getting updates, no communication, and then rumors like this,
yes,
that people are seeing your child dirty or, with bruises or anything like that. That would be maddening.
I can't imagine. Now, Swain County launched an investigation into suspected child abuse and neglect involving the toddler in November of 2010. This was the second investigation within 3 months. In September of 2010, an investigation into abuse and neglect had already begun, and Powell stated that bruises found on the child resulted from a fall down the stairs. The report of abuse made to Swain's DSS in November claimed that Powell had, quote, smacked Aubrey in the mouth when she cried and jerked Aubrey around and, quote, knocked Aubrey off the bed intentionally.
Damn.
Now, 3 days after this report was made in September, social workers visited Lady Bird Powell's home, and during the visit, they asked Powell to sign a document stating, quote, Lady Bird will not physically punish Aubrey. Now, at the time, Aubrey was 13 months old. I don't know who in their right mind thinks it's okay to physically punish a 13-month-old baby.
No,
I mean, first of all.
And even the most old school corporal punishment parent, I've never heard of anyone thinking that you can spank or, any of that to a baby.
But this far exceeds punishment. Throwing a child off the bed is not punishment. That's abuse.
That's abuse.
Smacking a child in the mouth is not okay.
No, that's true for a child of any age.
No,
honestly.
It is not okay. I mean, I'm not saying that I haven't had a 17-year-old, girl in my face that I've wanted to maybe do that to, but I didn't.
I've been smacked in the mouth. And I can assure you, I felt like it was a little too much.
I'm just saying, I know a lot of parents of teenagers out there who might want to smack their child in the mouth, but they don't. They refrain. It's called self-control, Dylan, right? Now, after one visit to the home, a DSS worker deemed the report of abuse unsubstantiated. Unsubstantiated, but hey, I want you to sign this document that you're not going to physically punish this baby.
That's their paper trail. That's the bureaucracy at work right there.
The social worker told Lady Bird Powell to take Aubrey to the doctor to have her injuries examined, but he never followed up to see if a doctor's visit had taken place. According to law enforcement records, the social worker fabricated a report claiming that Aubrey had been seen by a doctor. And we're going to get to that later on in our story. Now, Ruth McCoy, if you remember, that's the child's other great aunt. She said there were complaints from several relatives around this time, which I'm going to just say fall of 2010, regarding Aubrey, which DSS ignored.
So complaints from other relatives to DSS, and they just
completely ignored it. Like, didn't launch an investigation, didn't follow up, just let the call come in, okay, and then just did nothing.
I don't understand that. And the reason I don't understand that is because I know of, and I've had it happen to me, crazy neighbors call and say some crazy stuff to them that's going on at my house, and here they come. Knocking on the door, wanting to have a look around. So you already have an ongoing case, bit of a complicated case going on, and you have people saying, hey, this is happening, but you don't even check it out. But you can have a cold call from so-and-so who doesn't even know somebody, but you going to go look through their house and check on everybody? That doesn't add up for me.
I've heard of that type of thing happening a lot. Like the ex, an ex having the husband's new or, ex-husband's new
or the ex, you put ex whatever.
Or,
yeah,
somebody calling and reporting just to be an asshole. Or, that kind of thing happens. And it's pretty trashy when people do that.
Well,
you're wasting resources.
That's the main reason is damn well that you're lying. You're wasting resources. You have them over there messing with somebody just to get your rocks off or get back at them when they should be out there, looking for real abuse.
Yeah, I always think the fake back and forth, like, to me, that's just like total low class trash behavior.
It's extra trashy.
It's super trashy.
It's one of the trashiest things you could do is call and lie to DSS or Child Protective Services about somebody. That's pretty trashy.
Yeah.
That's like top 3.
In November, Ruth McCoy heard from a relative that social services had shown up at Powell's trailer to remove a 10-year-old boy who was living there. When McCoy heard this information, she drove to Powell's trailer and pleaded with social workers to take Aubrey as well. The trailer had no heat, and McCoy remarked that it was obvious to everyone, including the social workers, that the home was lacking any kind of adequate heating system. It was so cold inside the house, McCoy would later recall, that, quote, the social workers were sitting there on the couch with their hands clasped between their legs to keep warm.
What? Well, hold on a second. You're here to remove a child from the home. A 10-year-old.
Yes.
How in the world do you leave any other children there?
Beats the hell out of me, Dylan. One of the workers was second in command at the agency. His name was T.L. Jones. He actually went out to his vehicle to get a coat during this meeting.
Because he was cold.
Meanwhile, Aubrey, now remember, she's like 13 months old, 14 months old this time. She's dressed in a jacket and a hat inside the house to keep warm. McCoy demanded to know whether they were going to take Aubrey as well. She was informed it was, quote, a separate case and that they were only at the home to remove the 10-year-old. The look on your face.
It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense to me.
The reason for removing the 10-year-old was documented as drug and or alcohol use by the caregiver. The caregiver was listed as Mel Twanita, the boy's biological mother, who was staying in the trailer with Powell. The 10-year-old was placed in the care of Ruth McCoy.
Wait, before. So the 10-year-old at that moment was placed in McCoy's care?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, again, he's not in Lady Bird Powell's direct care, but he's living in the home with her and Aubrey and his mother, and there's no heat in the house.
Yeah. So even if...
So they'll come remove the 10-year-old from his mother from this home, but then leave this baby in the house where it's cold as hell.
That's what I'm saying. Even if you're like, hey, these are separate cases, you're on your way over there, doesn't the house being cold warrant you removing all children until we figure this out? I mean, I understand about the overloaded system, overwhelmed system, all that.
Well, it's a health and safety issue. Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, this is, as an adult, see, this is why I would have a tough time with this kind of work, because I couldn't let that go. I couldn't let that go, I don't think.
Look, I had a friend that worked at the newspaper, where I had worked previously. She worked in the newspaper and had left, had a degree, I think she's like a top-notch type of person, went to work for social services as a caseworker and got fired after having only been there probably less than 6 months because she was behind on her paperwork.
Really?
Yeah. So when she had a review and they're like, well, you're behind on your paperwork, you're fired. Removing someone who really cares about the job, who's trying to do her best, who's, very knowledgeable, educated. I mean, I consider her a really, good person. And I'm sure she was trying her damnedest. Just because she was behind on some paperwork.
Well, inside of 6 months, I would still feel like someone's still kind of learning the
Well,
ropes.
right? I mean, she was just like, what the hell? Like, stunned by this, because she's like, I've never been fired from a job in my life. But they were more concerned about having the paperwork completed in this timely manner, even though they overload you with cases,
right,
than the actual quality of your work or like what you're doing there, which I just think is crazy.
Well, it's opposite. And I understand you have to keep everything documented and stuff, but it's just that shouldn't be the number one concern, I don't think.
Aubrey's short life in the care of Powell had not been a good one. Aubrey was malnourished. She didn't receive routine medical care or immunizations. She was underdeveloped from being strapped into a car seat or left in a playpen for long periods of time. During the time Aubrey resided with Powell, law enforcement was called to the trailer 3 times between June and November of 2010. The complaints included domestic violence and, quote, a drunk person causing a disturbance. Aubrey Littlejohn died on January 10th of 2011. The night before, the child, wearing only a t-shirt and a diaper, was placed on a mattress on the floor. Witnesses had recalled the temperature being so cold that they were able to see their breath inside the house. The heat was off due to an unpaid power bill. So I don't know if that means like a propane bill, because I think they had electricity in the house, but they had no heat. So that kind of makes me think maybe it's a propane, oil, I don't know.
Go buy some electric heaters, dude. Look, I've lived in some shitholes. And I gotta say, right now, where we live at now is the first time in my life I ever had central air and heat. All the other times it was window units, various kinds of heat, kerosene heater, electric heaters, heat one room.
Poor people ways.
Hang up a blanket over the hallway,
Turn on the oven and open the door.
till the eye in the oven burns out. Yeah, many a time, different ways.
Poor people got poor ways.
I just don't know how you can sit around with little ones in this house like this, dude. I don't get it. I don't understand.
When Aubrey was taken to the Cherokee Indian Hospital on January 10th of 2011, she passed away about 15 minutes later. A man who lived in the home told the sheriff's office, a detective actually named Carolyn Posey, that Aubrey had been left in a car seat for 12 hours the day before and had only been given a few bites of a hot dog and sips of soda. The child was wrapped in a blanket. Her diaper was soaked with urine and feces. So it had obviously not been changed for like a very extended period of time.
So disgusting. That's just terrible.
The child was limp and cold to the touch. Her core temperature was only 84 degrees. And unfortunately, investigators failed to take the temperature inside the trailer, like later when they showed up, to do a search. Initially, Lady Bird Powell stated she didn't know what happened to the child or what caused the child's death. Powell mentioned that the trailer had heat and that the child was well cared for, including regular meals. She noted that the day before, Aubrey had spent most of the day out of her car seat playing while she and her boyfriend cleaned a house in Bryson City where they planned to move. Lady Bird also claimed that Aubrey had been fed breakfast and lunch on January 9th of 2011. Powell said the child was happy and healthy, although she reportedly could not walk yet at 15 months old. So she's, this is a milestone. She's developmentally delayed with this milestone. And there could be a lot of reasons for that. But let's be honest, that's abnormal. Most children who are 15 months old are walking, they're talking.
Yeah, when would you say is the average around? I know it's different for some kids do it real early, some do it a little bit later.
I would say about a year old maybe is the average. I know I walked very, very early. But, my son, he was quite delayed in walking. but my son's on the spectrum, and he had quite a few he had developmental issues. He wasn't hitting milestones. And, so we really had to advocate for him and get him into, like occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, because he wasn't hitting those milestones. But that's the thing. By the time a child's 15 months old, I mean, any pediatrician would probably let you know, hey, we're going to recommend some services. We need to get this little girl on track.
Right.
But the fact that she's not even seen a doctor, hasn't been vaccinated.
Well, and she shouldn't be in a car seat unless she's in the car going somewhere. I'm sorry, this isn't a newborn in a car carrier.
Well, the car seat's not your babysitter.
No, I'm saying, hey, we've all had the little tiny baby in the car carrier, the little baby seat that you keep right beside you, or they may be asleep and you let them sleep till they wake up once you get home.
Yeah, that's different than just leaving your baby strapped in a car seat for hours.
What the hell? I mean,
especially a child this age.
Because a 15-month,
they should be very active.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
They should be exploring. I mean, even if they're not walking, they should be crawling. They should be getting into stuff. They should be exploring their area. They should have a sense of curiosity and wonder. I mean, that's how you nurture children, is by allowing them to be active, right?
Well, that's why they're messing every damn thing up. You can't keep up with them because they're doing that very thing. They're
I mean, 15 months old is
exploring.
not far away from the terrible twos that they say.
No, they're all over the damn
Although
place.
I think the threes it should be the terrible threes.
Even before they start walking, you hear those little knees and hands going, and they're just all over the place.
Yeah, you have to childproof your home.
Yeah.
They're into everything.
Can't leave them strapped in a damn car seat.
Really, I mean, to me, that is so cruel to leave a toddler strapped into a car seat for 12 hours.
Oh, well, that's cruel. No, there's no way that's okay in any form, fashion, or age.
It's just indefensible. Powell had placed Aubrey. Now, this is what she's saying to police at the hospital. She placed Aubrey on a mattress with a blanket the night before. She, meaning Powell, had fallen asleep on the couch watching a movie with her boyfriend. And when she woke up, Powell checked on the child. And I have conflicting reports. I've had reports say it was her boyfriend. Other reports say it was her husband. So I'm not exactly sure, but it's her partner. So they'd fallen asleep on the couch watching a movie. She said when she woke up, she checked on the child. Aubrey was cold and not breathing. Powell grabbed Aubrey and headed to the hospital. She called 911 on her way, and the dispatcher told her how to perform CPR on the baby. Doctors in the emergency room tried to revive the child, but she was announced dead just before 4 a.m. An autopsy was performed at Wake Forest University's Baptist Medical Center by Dr. Donald Jason. Aubrey's autopsy indicated that the child had multiple bruises to the head and a broken arm. Dr. Jason ruled the head bruises had likely occurred within a day of the death, and the bruises wouldn't have been possible to receive from a fall.
So significant injuries to the head, right?
Dr. Jason also found that both forearms had previously been broken, and that these were consistent with blows to the area, like the way the bone was broken. It was like someone had to strike the child, like the child had to receive some type of blow.
Now, could they tell if those were breaks that were untreated?
Yes.
I see. I mean, you stop it right there. You stop the whole case, and you get some people, and you go out there, and you start kicking some ass, because there's no excuse for that. There's no way you can sugarcoat or explain a child having a broken bone and not being treated, and it just growing back by its fucking self, dude.
Yeah, I don't know how this community didn't run this woman out.
Well, it was a pretty big deal. I remember when this happened.
It was a very big deal when this happened.
Well, but it was honestly, it was like it was a bigger deal once it kind of blew up in DSS's face.
There are no doctor or hospital records showing that Aubrey had been seen for the 2 previous broken arms. And then she's got a broken arm at this time. So that means this baby has had 3 broken arms.
That's just terrible.
In the time that she's been in this woman's care.
Yeah, right.
Powell will later defend herself, stating that the child had fallen out of the car seat and down the front steps because the handle wasn't locked on the seat. Aubrey only suffered a bruise on her face, according to Powell. So this kid just repeatedly keeps falling down the stairs? I mean, I'm assuming, like, this is front steps, so there's, like, probably a little porch or some stairs
Trailer
leading
with
up to
3
the
or
trailer.
4 steps. Yeah.
So you're telling me that in September and then again, like this child just keeps falling down the stairs? So you've never made any headway, like getting a baby gate or
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Powell would say that Jasmine Littlejohn had begged her to take the child while she was in jail on the drug charge. The only condition she asked, according to Powell, Jasmine did not want to be required to pay child support for this child. Powell had agreed, but made Littlejohn sign over custody of the baby. Powell had a criminal history as well. Now, at 18, she was charged with assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill for attacking a woman with a knife.
Damn, that's a pretty serious charge.
The woman, according to Powell, had hit her in the head with a tire iron while they were drunk.
So self-defense, according to Powell.
What in the Jerry Springer? Just go around hitting somebody with a tire iron so you pull out a knife and try to stab them? I don't know. In 2007, Powell was cited for allowing a 14-year-old to drive 2 children aged 5 and 9 on US 19. The teenager crashed the car, and according to court documents, Powell struck the child in the face after this accident. The traffic charge was dismissed in exchange for Powell's guilty plea in the assault case.
So, and that's a highway, just for people who don't know.
Yeah.
That's a major road.
US 19.
It's actually a very strange piece of highway.
It's a pretty dangerous piece of road because it's very curvy and windy.
It's very curvy, up and down. I mean, if you went down this... I'm sure,
elevation changes, switchbacks.
I'm sure this piece of road, a lot of people around the country are not from mountains or anything like that would be like, wow, this is a weird kind of dangerous piece of road. So it's just a crazy place to let a kid drive a car who has
with
no
2
business.
children in the car.
Yeah. And then they mess up because they're a kid driving a car, and then you're going to hit them. I mean, so you're in the car with them.
Yeah.
Make it make sense. Now, this is something that previously happened.
Yes.
Before she was given custody of this little one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense to me. Because she's shown such good judgment in the past.
Shortly after the child's death, Swain County Sheriff's Detective Carolyn Posey arrived at the Cherokee Indian Hospital. And I'm kind of switching back and forth here. So she arrives at the hospital and she learns that the Department of Social Services has been involved in the home. And she requests the documents related to Aubrey Littlejohn be sent to her within a week. 2 weeks later, Posey had to go meet with social services, with the officials there, in person to ask for the information. It took another 2 weeks before she received some of the records. The documents were incomplete, with reports and pages missing. Like she might get 4 out of 5 pages of a report.
Well, that's not a good sign.
Or there might just completely be missing reports and In one report dated September 24th of 2010, Posey noted that a social worker named Craig Smith had called the Cherokee Indian Hospital to speak with a doctor who had seen the child after her fall down the stairs the first time that we know of. Because this kid just repeatedly falls down the stairs.
Yeah, the kid that can't walk.
She's not mastered the stairs yet. In his report, Craig Smith stated that the doctor indicated Aubrey was, quote, healthy and fine. So, Detective Posey requests all of the medical records from the hospital and soon learned the child had never been seen at Cherokee Indian Hospital before her death.
Damn.
Posey and a private investigator that had been hired by the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians interviewed Craig Smith a week later about the report. Smith said he received a report on September 15th and went to the home the following day. When he arrived, Powell was feeding the child. The home was neat and clean with running water and food. Smith then said he called the hospital on September 24th. Upon learning Aubrey was okay from the doctor, he sent a letter to Lady Bird Powell stating that the case had been closed, that it was an unsubstantiated report of abuse. Detective Posey confronted Smith about the lie because she knew he'd never called the hospital for a follow-up. Craig Smith then admitted that his supervisor, Candace Lassiter, had instructed him to falsify the report after Aubrey's death.
Damn.
He was called into a meeting with his supervisor, Candace Lassiter, and other DSS officials, including a woman named Tammy Cagle, who was like the director of social services, the agency director. And they're all inquiring about Aubrey Littlejohn's case. The director, Tammy Cagle, told him during the meeting, quote, "We have to get everything in order and everything straight." Cagle asked him why he hadn't followed up with a doctor. Tammy Cagle will be fired from her position in June of 2011 by the department's board of directors. Cagle, however, appealed this decision. The 5-member board let the former director go for charges of insubordination and conduct unbecoming to a state employee. In February of 2011, the State Bureau of Investigation raided Swain County's Department of Social Services offices and seized computers as part of an ongoing probe into the alleged cover-up following Littlejohn's death.
Damn, man. The FBI done
So
come up
after
in
they
there.
do this raid and they get this information, Tammy Cagle's out.
Well, she should be like that. That's criminal, dude. I mean, like, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like that was dumb anyway. Who thought that was going to work? If anybody with any authority at all looks into it, all they got to do is check with the hospital who keeps medical records. I mean, come on, dude. What are you thinking?
Though Craig Smith claimed the cover-up was ordered at the insistence of his superiors, including Tammy Cagle, she adamantly denied the claim. Craig Smith resigned from his position before he was terminated.
He should, because if you had any integrity, you would have run that up the flagpole when you were directed to falsify your reports after the death of a child.
One would think so.
Because I would go right above your head and I would go strongly worded emails to everybody I know, including the director of social services for the state of North Carolina or whoever. And there ain't no way in hell I would have falsified that report. Matter of fact, I probably would have already been fired because I would have already been pissed off the way this has been handled with this little girl, this poor little kid.
Cagle was with the Department of Social Services in Swain County for 13 years, serving 6 years as the director of the agency. She appealed her firing, but in 2014, the state rejected her appeal, so it didn't matter. She was out. It took over a year for Lady Bird Powell to be charged in connection with Aubrey's death. The autopsy could not definitively determine how the child had died, but it is believed to have been due to hypothermia. Along with a charge of second-degree murder and felony child abuse, Powell was also charged with exploitation and kidnapping. Jasmine Littlejohn said when she got out of jail, she had tried to get her daughter back, but Powell refused to hand the little girl over. Now, I guess this is, again, where I'm I got conflicting reports in my research, because Littlejohn said, her Aunt Bertie made her sign custody over. But then she's saying, I'm trying to get her back. So that makes me, I'm not 100% sure if she had custody or.
Well, maybe she just thought she could
get
the kid back even if she had signed over custody.
Yeah,
right?
well, I'm not. Well, that's why I'm just clarifying that I'm not sure. We were kind of conflicting. But back to this. Littlejohn said, so when she gets out of jail, she is trying to get her daughter back, but her aunt is refusing. That's when Powell demanded that Jasmine pay her thousands of dollars to release the child, that she wanted Jasmine Littlejohn's per cap money. So in Cherokee, North Carolina, the tribe has a casino, has Harris Cherokee Casino. And so every 6 months, I believe it's in June and December, enrolled members get 2 per capita lump sum payments.
Right.
Like dividends from the casino revenue. And these can vary, but I know it's like thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard 5,000, I've heard 8,000,
Yeah.
so I think there's a window. It
Yeah,
kind of goes up and down.
I think it kind of fluctuates. And
But it's thousands of dollars. It's
Yeah.
like a big fat tax return.
Right. So don't nail me down on those numbers. But like, for example, we had a friend, and her husband and children are enrolled, and they would basically take those 2 lump sum payments every year and pay their mortgage like twice a year, like
Right.
pay ahead. Yeah. I mean, so it would be like paying the mortgage for like a year or more. So, I mean, it's a huge chunk of money.
Well, that's one reason I was going to bring this up earlier when you're talking about this house had no fucking heat. I mean, you get these, let's call it a dividend check, sizable lump sums of
There's
money
no reason if you're getting
twice a year.
per cap, if you're getting, anywhere from like $14,000 to $16,000, $17,000 a year in per cap money, that you should not have heat in your home.
Right.
Like, what? What are you doing with that money?
Well, not buying heat.
Yeah. Jasmine Littlejohn, so she's refusing to pay this money.
Well, they're acting like this is a car impounded or something.
Yeah.
You give me this money so I'll release the child to you. And it's like you don't even want to take care of the kid.
Well, at the time, she didn't have the money. And she's also like, I can't afford this, and like, I'm not paying you to get my child back. And she was also afraid of her Aunt Bertie. Like she said, she's very intimidating type of person, and I was kind of afraid to push it with her. So Lady Bird also faced drug charges because of the methamphetamines and other drug paraphernalia that had been located in the trailer on the morning of Aubrey's death. In 2013, Lady Bird Powell pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter, 2 counts of felony child abuse, and extortion. More than 24 of Aubrey Littlejohn's relatives attended the court hearing in Swain County. Powell also pleaded guilty to possession of drugs and drug paraphernalia. The prosecutor was concerned that second-degree murder charge would be kind of risky at a jury trial, given the circumstantial evidence of the case. So that's why they basically made a plea deal with her.
Manslaughter instead of second degree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, I guess.
Jasmine Littlejohn shared with the Smoky Mountain News about Powell's conviction, saying, quote, "This is a significant step, but just one in the journey. The Department of Social Services must be held accountable." Following the death of Aubrey, Cherokee leaders worked to create their own child welfare agency to handle cases on the reservation and involving tribal children. Ruth McCoy had custody of Zoe and a son born to Jasmine after Aubrey's death, and she said, quote, "This is very, very hard for all of us." Candace Lassiter pleaded guilty to 3 counts of forgery. She admitted that she ordered records be falsified in the case of Aubrey Littlejohn. As part of her plea deal, she agreed to cooperate with authorities in the case against the other social worker, Craig Smith. She received a 6 to 8 month suspended sentence, but spent 2 years on unsupervised probation.
So she got nothing.
She was ordered to serve 48 hours of community service and pay $3,600 in fines. So basically a slap on the wrist.
How many other cases did she lie about? How many other children and families were affected by this woman?
It's a good question.
I mean, this is what kills me, man. This is what kills me. When these people do stuff like this in positions of authority and power, and then they always get slaps on the wrist for it,
6 years later, Craig Smith finally, went through the court process and ended up pleading guilty to forgery and was sentenced to a year of unsupervised probation and fined $1,000. Aubrey's uncle, Henry Littlejohn, said, quote, "It should be a stiffer penalty, at least somewhat in prison, due to the fact that it was death of a child that was 18 months old. With it being a child, I think that was just a slap on the wrist." I think a lot of people agree with that.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
So this case, I mainly researched from newspaper articles. The Smoky Mountain News had a lot of information. And the Asheville Citizen-Times, I think it's called the Native Times, and the Cherokee One Feather. So I used quite a bit of newspaper accounts for today's research.
Man, I just don't understand how these people can sleep at night. And why don't you want to give the kid back? You didn't even want to take care of the kid. You wasn't even doing a proper job.
I just don't understand. Like, why would you even take this baby if you didn't want her?
You're just going to treat her like shit.
Yeah. And the truth is, we don't know what happened. I mean, the child might have passed because of hypothermia, but it sounds like there was a lot of abuse in the house. So how do we know that she, her little body didn't shut down from abuse, or because she's not being fed properly, she's dehydrated? I mean, there could be a lot of reasons.
I don't care if it is hypothermia. You let a little baby lay in the floor and freeze to death. That's almost worse than some other forms of abuse, honestly.
And you got money to buy methamphetamine and shit in your house, but you don't have heat? Who lives like that is what I want to know.
I don't know.
And this lady is out of prison. She's back living in the area. And I just think, how is she not shunned and ostracized from the community?
I just don't. I can't believe that she's even able to go back around there.
Well, just Cherokee being and the reservation being such an insular community, I just don't even know how she could even move back there, show her face, and be accepted back in the community. Because I just feel like if I saw this woman at the grocery store, I'd be throwing a tomato at her or something.
Yeah.
Because she's a monster.
Yeah, it's horrific.
I mean, even if she didn't like physically murder this child, it was her actions that led to this child's death. And she's a monster.
Well, the death and all the suffering
The broken
before she...
bones,
Yeah.
the abuse.
Yeah.
The malnourishment, not taking the child to the... I mean, how hard is it to take a baby to the doctor once in a while?
And the health care is provided.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
It's not like it's a concern of money or anything.
No, there's free health care provided on the reservation. So I just don't understand, like, how this happened. And how DSS failed this child so badly.
Yeah. Time and time again. It wasn't just like one, they missed it just the once. I mean, come on.
No, it's atrocious what happened to this poor child.
What I've realized with DSS and my personal experience is if you are a normal person and you have a regular household and it's some bullshit and you cooperate with them, boy, it takes them a long time to close that case. Months and months and months and visits after visit and this and that, and they're checking everything. But you can have some piece of shit like this and it's just like the case gets wrapped up in a matter of days or a week. I mean, it just blows my mind.
Well, I realize that there are a lot of issues with the Department of Social Services in many areas, but it definitely seems that like Western North Carolina has had a lot of issues within their social services. I know Haywood County was sued not that long ago, like within the past few years, for some report. They show up to the house. It's like just a normal good family. Take these kids. There were some allegations of like sex abuse or something, and they took the kids out of this house. Took them to this center where they interviewed the kids and then made them do these like physical examinations and
very invasive,
super invasive. And these kids were just like, nothing is and these were kids that were old enough to be like, nothing has happened to us. Like, what are you doing? And they were terrified, and it like really traumatized these children. There was no abuse. It was unsubstantiated. And, this family and these children went through hell. And the kids are like never the same after this happened to them. And the family sued and ended up like winning the lawsuit.
Right.
In Cherokee County, which is, just a few counties over from Swain County, they had to pay a combined $53 million in settlements, jury awards, and attorney fees related to nearly 24. That's right, Dylan. I said 24 lawsuits against its Department of Social Services. The lawsuits followed actions by local social workers who convinced parents to give up their children without any judicial oversight. And this is unlawful in North Carolina. And a judge ruled in early 2019, a few months after the scheme was uncovered. I mean, this is crazy. Lawyers for the county said that social workers were responsible for 30 child removals from 2009 to 2018. Lawyers for the children and parents, however, say there could be dozens more.
Damn.
So they got these people to give up their children without any kind of judge signing off on it.
No due process.
Yeah.
But then you're not going to.
So this was like starting back as far as 1999. The Cherokee County Department of Social Services workers separated children from parents without the involvement of the judicial system. Workers often convinced parents to sign what they called a custody and visitation agreement, or a CVA. However, the use of these specific documents escalated in 2016. Shortly after, a longtime department employee named Cindy Palmer was elected as the department's director. Palmer is married to Derek Palmer, who was the county sheriff at the time, and I believe he may still be the sheriff.
Look, they need to get that shit cleaned up out there.
Yeah, I mean, this is really, if you think about it, this is fraud.
Yeah.
I just don't even know what to say about it. This was a huge news story as well. But like I'm pointing out here, I mean, you have a lot of these issues within these small rural social services departments. And again, I think it falls down to, how much oversight are they getting from the state? How are they being held accountable? It just seems like they're kind of allowed to do whatever they want.
And I know they're victims of a lot of times the social services across the board are some of the first things slashed.
Budget,
when the belt has to be tightened. But I really think there's a better way we could go about this as a state, as a nation. I mean, there really needs to be, these types of things can be cleaned up. They could be modernized, the reporting, the paperwork, all that stuff. It will go a long way to help streamline this situations. And, there's got to be somewhere else to squeeze the budget to get more caseworkers, to get higher quality, outcomes on these cases.
Well, and
there's got to be.
And I think with like a lot of things, you end up with, the administrative bloat.
Well, there you go.
Where a lot of money is funneled to the top part of the agency, and you have like these directors and, executives and attorneys.
Everybody has an assistant.
And everybody, and then they're getting paid, getting paid pretty well for these jobs. And then you have the social workers who are overworked, overburdened with caseloads, and underpaid. I mean, most people don't want to go into this line of work when they know, like, I might be making $22,000 a year.
That's crazy.
I have to have a college degree, and I'm probably going to be traumatized from all the bullshit I see happening to children, to the elderly, to the most vulnerable people in society.
It takes a special person to go all the way through and get a master's. I don't care what the subject is. That's a long time of your life, a lot of schooling, a lot of money, and then go sign up for a job making $25,000, $35,000 a year, and then all this responsibility, and then on top of that, you're going to receive, you might receive poor leadership from your chain of command there. I mean, it doesn't sound like a great choice,
Yeah, well, I think like with anything, when I'm focusing on kind of the rural parts of the state. We lived in those areas, so we kind of know firsthand how it operates. And you have these, smaller Department of Social Services. They probably do have trouble recruiting solid workers because of the low pay, the area, the cost of living versus the wage. They're probably not able to recruit the best and the brightest. And then they are overworked, handed all these caseloads, and they have to meet all these deadlines. There's all this red tape. They probably don't have a lot of support because they are smaller agencies. But I guess I'm like, how do you have an agency that maybe has this few employees and you're in a more rural area and you're not dealing with this huge population versus a huge area like Mecklenburg County where Charlotte's located, and those agencies don't have those problems. So, I don't understand, because you'd think maybe a bigger agency would be more have more trouble
right,
than these smaller counties, but it seems like these rural areas are the ones that just keep being involved in this, I don't know, illegal shit.
Well, and I think it goes back to these rural areas, have the smaller budgets. They get, less or for years, for decades, they've gotten less of the resources from the state for many things, infrastructure, your public departments like social services and things like that. And, I think it shows.
Well, the Department of Social Services in Transylvania County, which is like the Brevard, Lake Toxaway, Rosamond area, they've also been involved in multiple controversies and scandals involving the DSS there. They've had lawsuits and allegations of discrimination. A former social worker named Marilyn Borom filed a federal suit alleging discrimination. Families have made allegations that DSS staff have insulted them based on their race, poverty, and other factors. Families also allege that DSF staff ignored judges' orders to keep families together. And another controversy, which has been more recent, we've discussed it here on the news. A while back, a camper died at Trails, Carolina, which was like a wilderness therapy camp located in the mountains of North Lake Toxaway. That camp faced a lawsuit from a former attendee who alleged sexual assault. And I guess not, they report this and the DSS doesn't really do much about it.
Yeah. But then they're going to overreact with some other families and, create a nightmare for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
so, like I said, there's been a lot of problems, and hopefully, Swain has improved after these issues surfaced.
Well, unfortunately, it was unfortunate for the little one involved in this and the rest of the family members who were trying to get something done and couldn't. But hopefully, the only good thing out of this can be maybe that the department's in better shape now.
Yeah. And, it was important for me to talk about Aubrey's case because, like you said, Dylan, it was a really big news story in our area when we were living in Western North Carolina when all of this happened. Again, that was like back in 2011. But, the trials, the criminal charge, this case spanned for multiple years.
Right.
And people were just stunned at how badly this agency failed this child. This horrific death of this child that was so avoidable.
Right.
Get some fucking heat, lady. And I don't know. I just thought it was really important to talk about because, we want to keep Aubrey's memory alive and also, spread awareness about these kinds of things and advocating for children as best that we can.
Well, as a caseworker, I'm like, hey, this child needs to go to the doctor. And when I follow up, which that's not that hard to do, right?
How long does it take to make a phone call?
You haven't, then I'm going to go back and this child's going to see a doctor, right? I don't know how that works. I don't know what the rules are, and then the doctor looks at, hey, wow, she's had multiple breaks and bones that were not set. Hey, we need to take this child out of that home. You see how that fucking works?
Or how there's no heat in this house.
Well, come on.
This is detrimental to this child's health and safety and welfare. Like, we're going to take this child and put her in a warm house.
Yeah, this is in the mountains.
I don't get it.
Okay.
It's very sad.
Gosh, man. I'm mad and I'm sad.
Yeah, I know. My heart goes out to this family and this poor mother who, put her entrusted someone to her relative to care for her child, and this is what her own blood does to her child. It's really sad.
It's really sad.
All right, Dylan, thank you for discussing this case with me today.
Thank you for telling me about it.
Don't forget to check out mountainmurderspodcast.com, our website. You can listen to the podcast. You can buy merch. It's like a one-stop for all your Mountain Murders needs.
Yeah, we're serving all your needs at mountainmurders.com.
Why?
That's right.
Why must you be this way?
I don't know.
Bye, Dylan.
Bye.
Do you hate getting stuck in rush hour traffic? Do you find yourself dozing off trying to get home?
Do you start daydreaming about the paranormal and forget you're sitting behind the wheel?
If the answer is yes, then don't wait another minute. Tune into the Paranormal Peeps podcast.
We are ready to entertain you.